It was a typical Wednesday evening, and I was just finishing some paperwork in my home office when my phone rang. The sound was sharp and urgent, cutting through the quiet of the house. I glanced at the caller ID and saw Jessica's name flashing on the screen. My heart skipped a beat. Calls from my wife during the day were usually just quick check-ins, but this had the air of something more pressing. "David, something happened." Jessica's voice was laced with concern, immediately grabbing my full attention. Lily and Ava were out walking Max by the drainage canal, and a strange man approached them. "What?" I stood up, my mind racing. "Are they okay?" "They're fine." Lily sensed something was off and got them out of there quickly. "They're at the Thompsons now." Relief washed over me, but it was quickly followed by a surge of protective anger. What did this guy want? He was asking them about a missing cat. It sounded harmless, but Lily said he was acting strange. My heart pounded in my chest. Lily was a smart kid, perceptive beyond her years. If she thought something was wrong, I believed her. "I'll be right there," I said, grabbing my keys and heading out the door. Our suburban neighborhood was usually quiet, a place where kids played in the streets and neighbors looked out for one another. But the thought of a strange man approaching my daughter and her friend filled me with unease. As I drove, memories of the past few days flashed through my mind. We had just moved here a few months ago, and everything had seemed perfect. The community was friendly, the schools were good, and Lily had made friends quickly. Ava was one of her closest, a sweet girl with a big smile who lived just a few houses down. I pulled up to the Thompsons' house and hurried inside. Lily and Ava were sitting on the couch, their faces pale, but otherwise unharmed. Jessica was beside them, her hand on Lily's shoulder, offering comfort. "Dad!" Lily jumped up and ran to me, hugging me tightly. "I'm so glad you're here." "I'm here, sweetie," I said, holding her close. "Tell me what happened." Lily took a deep breath and started to explain. "We were just walking Max by the drainage canal like we always do. This man came up to us and asked if we'd seen a missing cat. He was weird. He kept looking around and his voice was shaky. I got a bad feeling, so I told Ava we needed to go." Ava nodded, her eyes wide. "Lily pulled me away and we ran to the Thompsons. We were scared he might follow us." I exchanged a look with Jessica. We were both thinking the same thing. Thank God Lily had trusted her instincts. "Did you see where he went?" I asked. Lily shook her head. "No, we didn't look back." I sighed, a mix of relief and frustration swirling inside me. "Okay, the important thing is that you're both safe." Mrs. Thompson, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. "I think we should let the other neighbors know, just to be safe. Maybe someone else has seen this man." I nodded. "Good idea, and I'll call the police just to make a report. We need to keep an eye out." As we drove home, I felt a deep sense of gratitude for Lily's quick thinking. Nothing serious had happened, and for that, I was thankful. Still, the incident was a stark reminder of the world we lived in and the importance of staying vigilant. That night, as we sat down for dinner, I couldn't help but feel proud of my daughter. She had shown wisdom beyond her years, and it was a comfort to know that she could handle herself in a difficult situation. "Lily," I said, as we finished our meal, "I'm really proud of you. You did exactly the right thing." She smiled, a little shyly. "Thanks, Dad. I just felt like we needed to get away." "You trusted your gut, and that's important. Always listen to that feeling." Jessica nodded in agreement. "You were very brave, Lily. We're so glad you're safe." As I tucked Lily into bed that night, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease entirely. But I also knew that we had done everything we could to protect our family. We would remain vigilant, keep our communication open, and ensure that our neighborhood stayed the safe haven it was meant to be. The next morning, the sun rose over our suburban neighborhood, casting a warm glow over the quiet streets. Despite the unsettling incident from the day before, life continued as usual. Lily and Ava were back to their normal routines, though they stayed close to home and played under the watchful eyes of the neighborhood parents. Over breakfast, Jessica and I discussed our plan. "I think it's important we talk to the neighbors today," she said, her voice steady but serious. "We need to make sure everyone is aware of what happened." I nodded in agreement. "I'll start with the Johnsons and the Millers. Can you talk to the Parkers and the Browns?" "Absolutely," she replied, "and we'll meet up with the Thompsons later to see if they've heard anything else." With our plan set, We finished our coffee and set out to alert the community. The Johnsons were our next-door neighbors, a friendly couple with 2 young boys. I knocked on their door and was greeted by Mrs. Johnson, her expression immediately turning to concern when I explained why I was there. "Thank you for telling us," she said, glancing over her shoulder to where her boys were playing in the living room. "We'll keep a close eye on the kids. Please let us know if you hear anything else." Next, I headed to the Millers, who lived across the street. Mr. Miller listened intently, his face growing stern. "I'll talk to the other dads," he said. "We need to make sure everyone is on the lookout." Jessica had similar conversations with the Parkers and the Browns. Each family reacted with the same mix of concern and determination to keep their children safe. By midday, word had spread and our tight-knit community was on high alert. In the afternoon, we gathered at the Thompsons' house. Mrs. Thompson had been busy as well, and several other neighbors had already stopped by to discuss the situation. "I spoke with Officer Martinez," Mrs. Thompson said, referring to our local community liaison officer. "He said he'd increase patrols in our area and keep an eye out for anyone matching the description we gave him." "That's good to hear," I said, feeling a bit of the tension ease from my shoulders. "Hopefully, this will be enough to keep our kids safe." As the adults talked, Lily and Ava played quietly nearby. I couldn't help but feel a surge of pride and gratitude for my daughter. Her quick thinking had not only protected her and Ava, but had also spurred the entire community into action. That evening, as we sat down for dinner, the atmosphere was a bit lighter. Jessica and I had done everything we could to ensure our neighborhood's safety, and it felt good to be surrounded by such a supportive community. "Any word from Officer Martinez?" Jessica asked as we ate. "Not yet," I replied. "But he's on it, and everyone is keeping a close eye out." Lily looked up from her plate, her eyes wide. "Dad, do you think the man will come back?" I shook my head, reaching out to squeeze her hand. "I don't think so, sweetheart. We've taken all the right steps, and now the police are involved. We're doing everything we can to keep you safe." She nodded, seeming to take some comfort in my words. "Okay." As we settled into our evening routine, the events of the past day weighed on my mind. It was a stark reminder of the world we lived in and the constant vigilance required to protect our loved ones. But it also highlighted the strength of our community and the power of coming together in times of need. Before bed, I took Max for a walk around the block, making a point to check the area near the drainage canal. Everything was quiet, and I felt a sense of peace knowing that we had taken action. As I headed back home, I saw Mr. Miller standing on his porch, keeping watch. I waved, and he gave me a nod of solidarity. We were all in this together, and that gave me comfort. That night, as I lay in bed beside Jessica, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. We would continue to stay vigilant, protect our children, and support our community. No matter what challenges came our way, we were ready to face them together. Days turned into weeks, and the eerie encounter with the strange man by the drainage canal began to fade into the background of our everyday lives. Summer was in full swing, and the neighborhood was alive with the sounds of children playing, sprinklers whirring, and BBQs sizzling. One particularly hot afternoon, I was in the backyard, grilling hamburgers while Lily and Ava splashed in the kiddie pool. Jessica was inside preparing the rest of the meal, and the air was filled with the delicious smell of cooking meat and the girls' laughter. "Dad, look at this!" Lily called, holding up a water balloon triumphantly before tossing it at Ava, who shrieked with delight. "Nice throw!" I cheered, flipping a burger and enjoying the simple pleasures of the moment. Just as I was about to call the girls over for lunch, my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a text from Mr. Miller. "David, can you come over? I need to talk to you." Concern prickled at the back of my neck. Mr. Miller was a no-nonsense kind of guy, and if he needed to talk, it was likely important. I quickly excused myself from grilling duty and walked across the street to his house. Mr. Miller was waiting for me on his porch, a serious expression on his face. "David, thanks for coming over," he said, motioning for me to sit down. "I saw something today, and I think you should know." I took a seat, my stomach knotting with worry. "What is it?" "I was out in the backyard, fixing the fence," Mr. Miller began, his voice low, "and I saw a man standing by the drainage canal. He was just watching." My heart sank. The drainage canal, the same place where Lily and Ava had encountered the strange man weeks ago. Did you see what he looked like? Mr. Miller nodded. Yeah, he was tall and thin, wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses. Looked like he was trying to hide. Fear clenched my chest. It sounded like the same man. Did he see you? I don't think so, Mr. Miller replied. I went inside and called the police right away. They said they'd send someone to check it out. Good, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Thank you for letting me know. Mr. Miller gave me a nod. I thought you should be aware. We need to stay vigilant. As I walked back home, my mind raced with worry. Had the man returned? What did he want? I knew one thing for certain. I needed to talk to Jessica and make sure Lily and Ava stayed close to home until we knew more. Back in our backyard, I found Jessica setting the picnic table. Everything okay? She asked, noticing the serious look on my face. I just talked to Mr. Miller, I said quietly, recounting what he had seen by the drainage canal. Jessica's expression mirrored my concern. Do you think it's the same guy? It sounds like it, I replied, feeling a weight settle in my stomach. I'm going to call Officer Martinez and see if he has any updates. Jessica nodded, her brow furrowed. We should keep the girls inside until we know more. I agreed, pulling out my phone and dialing the non-emergency police line. After a brief hold, I was connected to Officer Martinez. David, he greeted me warmly. What can I do for you? I quickly explained what Mr. Miller had seen. It sounds like the same man Lily and Ava encountered. Is there any update on your end? We've been keeping an eye out, Officer Martinez replied. But so far we haven't seen anyone matching that description. I'll send a patrol car to check the area again. Thank you, I said, feeling a flicker of relief. Please keep us updated. We will, Officer Martinez assured me before we ended the call. Turning to Jessica, I relayed the information. They're sending a patrol car, I said. We just need to stay vigilant. She nodded, her worry evident. Let's keep the girls inside for now. I'll talk to Lily and Ava. Inside the house, Lily and Ava were playing a board game in the living room. They looked up as Jessica approached, concern etching lines on her face. Girls, Jessica began gently, sitting down beside them. Your dad just talked to Mr. Miller, and he saw someone near the drainage canal. Lily's eyes widened, and Ava looked scared. Is it the same man? Lily asked, her voice barely a whisper. We think so, Jessica replied, her tone calm but serious. We're going to keep you inside for a little while, okay? Just until we know everything is safe. Lily nodded solemnly, while Ava squeezed her stuffed bear tightly. Okay, Lily said quietly. Jessica hugged them both tightly. We're going to take care of you, she promised. For the rest of the afternoon, we kept the girls occupied indoors, playing games and watching a movie. I couldn't shake the feeling of unease, though. The thought of that man lurking around our neighborhood filled me with a protective anger. As evening fell, Officer Martinez called back with an update. David, we checked the area, but we didn't find anyone matching the description, he said. We'll keep patrolling throughout the night. Thank you, officer, I said gratefully. Please let us know if anything changes. I will, he assured me before hanging up. I relayed the news to Jessica, who let out a sigh of relief. At least he's not still there, she said, rubbing her temples tiredly. I just want this to be over. I know, I said, wrapping my arms around her. We'll get through this. That night, we kept a close watch on the neighborhood from our living room window. The street was quiet, bathed in the soft glow of streetlights. It was hard to believe that just a few hours ago, our peaceful afternoon had been shattered by fear. As I watched over our sleeping neighborhood, I couldn't help but think about Lily and Ava. They were safe inside, but I knew we couldn't let our guard down. The man was still out there, and until he was caught, we needed to stay vigilant. The next morning dawned bright and clear, the events of the previous day already starting to feel like a distant memory. Jessica and I had spent a restless night, but the neighborhood remained quiet. Over breakfast, we discussed our plan for the day. I think we should reach out to the neighbors again, Jessica said, her voice determined. Let them know what happened and make sure everyone is still on high alert. I nodded in agreement. I'll talk to the Johnsons and the Millers again. Can you check in with the Parkers and the Browns? Of course, she replied, her brow furrowed with concern. And we should keep an eye on Lily and Ava. After breakfast, we set out to alert the community once more. The Johnsons and the Millers reacted with renewed concern, their faces tightening with worry. Mr. Johnson promised to keep an eye on the neighborhood from his workshop, while Mrs. Miller vowed to organize a neighborhood watch meeting. Jessica had similar conversations with the Parkers and the Browns. Each family expressed gratitude for the update and a determination to protect their children. By midday, our neighborhood was buzzing with activity. Parents stood watch at the bus stop, while others patrolled the streets in their cars. The sense of solidarity was palpable, a collective determination to keep our community safe. In the afternoon, we gathered at the Thompsons' house once again. Mrs. Thompson had set out refreshments, and several neighbors had already arrived to discuss the situation. "I've been in touch with Officer Martinez," Mrs. Thompson said, her voice steady. "He assured me that they're increasing patrols and keeping a close eye on the area." "That's good to hear," I said, feeling a flicker of relief. "Hopefully, that will deter him from coming back." As we talked, Lily and Ava played quietly in the corner of the room, their laughter a welcome sound amidst the tension. I couldn't help but feel a swell of pride for my daughter. Despite everything, she had remained strong and resilient. Later that evening, as we sat down for dinner, the atmosphere was lighter than it had been in days. The community's response had been swift and unified, a testament to the strength of our neighborhood. "Any word from Officer Martinez?" Jessica asked, stirring her pasta absent-mindedly. "Not yet," I replied, taking a sip of water. "But he's keeping us updated, and everyone is keeping watch." Lily looked up from her plate, her eyes serious. "Dad, do you think the man will come back?" I paused, considering my answer carefully. "I don't know, sweetie," I said honestly. "But we're doing everything we can to keep you safe. That's what's important." She nodded, seeming to take comfort in my words. "Okay." As we finished our meal, I couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude for our community. In times of uncertainty, we had come together to protect our children and support one another. It was a reminder of the strength that could be found in unity. That night, as I tucked Lily into bed, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease entirely. But I also knew that we had done everything we could to protect our family. We would remain vigilant, keep our communication open, and ensure that our neighborhood stayed the safe haven it was meant to be. Days turned into weeks, and that strange encounter with the drainage canal began to fade against the backdrop of our daily lives. Summer was in full swing, filling our neighborhood with the sounds of children playing, sprinklers splashing, and the sizzle of grills. One particularly hot day, I stood in the yard flipping burgers while Lily and Ava giggled in their small inflatable pool. Jessica was inside preparing the rest of the food, and the air was thick with the scent of barbecue and children's laughter. "Daddy, look!" Lily called out, proudly displaying a burst water balloon and lobbing it toward Ava, who squealed in delight. "Great throw!" I applauded, flipping another burger and soaking in the simple joys of the moment. Just as I was about to call the girls in for lunch, my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a message from Mr. Miller. "David, can you come over? I need to talk to you." Apprehension tingled down my spine. Mr. Miller was a serious man, and if he needed to talk, it meant something serious. I quickly excused myself from the barbecue and walked across the street to his house. Mr. Miller was waiting for me on the porch, his expression grave. "David, thanks for coming," he said, motioning for me to sit down. "Today I was fixing the fence in the backyard, and I saw a man near the drainage canal. He was just watching." My heart sank. The drainage canal, the same place where Lily and Ava encountered a stranger weeks ago. "Did he see you?" I asked. Mr. Miller nodded. "Yes, he was tall and thin, wearing a cap and sunglasses. It seemed like he was trying to hide." Fear gripped my chest. It sounded like the same person. "Did you call out to him?" "I went inside and called the police right away. They said they would send someone to check it out." "Okay," I said, trying to keep calm. "Thank you for letting me know." Mr. Miller nodded. "I thought you should know. We need to stay vigilant." Walking back home, I was filled with unease. Returning to our yard, I found Jessica setting the table. "Everything okay?" she asked, noticing the serious look on my face. "I just talked to Mr. Miller," I said quietly, recounting what he saw near the drainage canal. Jessica's expression mirrored my worry. "Do you think it's the same person?" "It sounds like it," I replied, feeling the weight in my gut. I'll call Officer Martinez and see if there are any updates. She nodded, her brow furrowed with concern. We need to keep Lily and Ava close to home until we know more. I agreed, pulling out my phone and dialing the non-emergency police number. After a short pause, I was connected to Officer Martinez. "David," he greeted warmly. "How can I help?" I quickly explained what Mr. Miller had seen. "It sounds like the same person Lily and Ava encountered. Any updates on your end?" "We're keeping an eye out," Officer Martinez replied. "But we haven't seen anyone matching that description yet. I'll dispatch a patrol car to recheck the area." "Thank you," I said, feeling a slight relief. "Please keep us informed." "We will," he assured me before hanging up. Turning to Jessica, I relayed the information. "They're sending a patrol car," I said. "We just need to stay vigilant." She nodded, her worry palpable. "Let's keep the girls inside for now. I'll talk to Lily and Ava." Inside, Lily and Ava were playing a board game in the living room. They looked up as Jessica approached, smoothing out worry lines on her face. "Girls," Jessica began gently, sitting down beside them. "Your dad just spoke with Mr. Miller, and he saw someone near the drainage canal." Lily's eyes widened, and Ava looked frightened. "Is it the same person?" Lily asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "We think so," Jessica answered, her tone calm but serious. "We'll keep you inside for a while, okay? Just until we're sure everything is safe." Lily nodded solemnly, while Ava clutched her stuffed bear tightly. "Okay," she said softly. Jessica hugged both girls tightly. "We'll take care of you," she promised. We spent the rest of the day keeping the girls entertained indoors, playing games and watching movies. Yet, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease. We didn't know what this person wanted. One thing was certain. I needed to talk to Lily and Ava and ensure they stayed close to home until we knew more. The next morning dawned bright and clear, the previous day feeling like a distant memory. We had a restless night, but the neighborhood remained quiet. Over breakfast, we discussed our plan for the day. "I think we should reach out to the neighbors again," Jessica said, her voice determined. "Let them know what's happened and make sure everyone is still on high alert." I nodded in agreement. "I'll talk to the Johnsons and the Millers. Could you check in with the Parkers and the Browns?" "Of course," she replied, her brows knit with concern. "And we need to keep an eye on Lily and Ava." After breakfast, we set out to inform the community once more. The Johnsons and Millers reacted with renewed concern, their faces tight with worry. Mr. Johnson promised to keep watch from his workshop, while Mrs. Miller vowed to organize a neighborhood watch meeting. Jessica had similar conversations with the Parkers and Browns. Each family expressed gratitude for the information and resolve to protect their children. By noon, our neighborhood was buzzing with activity. Parents stood watch at the bus stop, while others patrolled the streets in their cars. The sense of solidarity was palpable, a collective determination to keep our community safe. By late afternoon, we gathered again at the Thompsons' house. Mrs. Thompson had laid out snacks, and several neighbors had already arrived to discuss the situation. "I've been in touch with Officer Martinez," Mrs. Thompson said, her voice steady. "He assured me they're stepping up patrols and keeping a close eye on the area." "Oh, that's good to hear," I said, feeling a slight relief. "Hopefully, it will deter him from coming back." As we talked, Lily and Ava played quietly in a corner of the room, their laughter a welcome sound amid the tension. I couldn't help but feel proud of my daughter. Despite everything, she remained strong and resilient. Late into the evening, as we sat down for dinner, the atmosphere was lighter than it had been in days. The community's response had been swift and unified, a testament to the strength of our neighborhood. "Any word from Officer Martinez?" Jessica asked, absent-mindedly stirring her pasta. "Not yet," I replied, taking a sip of water. "But he's keeping us updated, and everyone is keeping watch." Lily looked up from her plate, her expression serious. "Daddy, do you think that man will come back?" I paused, carefully considering my response. "I don't know, sweetheart," I said honestly. "But we're doing everything we can to protect you. That's what's important." She nodded, seeming reassured by my words. "Okay." As we finished dinner, I couldn't help but feel grateful for our community. In uncertain times, we had come together to protect our children and support each other. It was a reminder of the strength found in unity. That night, as I tucked Lily into bed, I couldn't completely shake the feeling of unease. but I also knew that we had done everything possible to protect our family. We would remain vigilant, keep communication open, and ensure that our neighborhood remained the safe haven it should be.